Hello, and welcome to this video on the mental health impact of the war in Ukraine. My name is Janet Salisbury, and I am the Chief Clinical Officer here at Community Partners, and I'm also a licensed social worker. I specialize in trauma, working with children and families, and also working with those with severe mental illness. And in this video tonight, I'm going to provide you with some information about how stress affects you and what you can do to mitigate that response. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what's going on in the world today. It is March 2022. We are hopefully, the pandemic from COVID-19 is slowly reducing. And at the same time, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we are now watching a war unfold in front of us. And so the attack on Ukraine and this evolving war has evoked many emotions in all of us, including anger, fear, worry, and confusion. The entire country faces news of this war. You can be experiencing stress and anxiety as you watch, listen, and hear the images that are coming in real time 24/7 through so many different media. There are ways to cope with this and to work through the sadness, the shock, the anger, and the despair that we all are experiencing. So the first thing that I want to do is talk a little bit about what's going on for each of us and understanding that. I think once you have an understanding, then you can develop ways to better cope. So one of the great things about our brain is that in an instant, it will respond to what it perceives as a threat or a stressor. That's the great thing. It's led us to survive these many millennia. But what the brain doesn't do is it cannot discern between a real threat and a perceived threat. And so it takes the same action regardless of whether you are in a real threatening survival situation or whether it is just a perception. And so all of the images that we are seeing, the things that we are hearing are all our brain is interpreting those as perceived threats. And that is really a stressor on our body. And the brain reacts in the same way every single time. That's a survival mechanism. I think most of you have heard about the fight or flight syndrome, and that's really what's going on here. Our brain perceives a stressor, and so it goes into action, and it calls on the rest of the body to go into action. And so what it does is it shoots chemicals and hormones through our system that allow us in the short term to survive that perceived stressor. So things like cortisol and what we deem adrenaline is coursing through our system so that we can survive and thrive in the short term. But in the long term, those same chemicals begin to do damage to our body. And so what I think it's really important to understand is that what's going on in Ukraine and the information that's coming at us from all forms of media and in all forms, again, through social media, whether it is Facebook, if you're scrolling through your Instagram, Snapchat, it is coming at you. In our age of social media, it is no longer that we are going to seek stuff out. It is coming at us whether we want to see it or not. Through the TV, 24/7, this stuff is happening in real time, and we really can see it all. And so those images, the sounds that we're hearing, there's no filter anymore. And so it is like we are in the middle of this with them. And so our body is reacting. And so that's what we call a stress response. So what does that look like? How does that manifest itself? And so I'm going to talk first about physically how that manifests in our bodies. So things like changes in sleep. For a lot of people, they have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep. Their sleep is often disrupted. For some people, they actually sleep more. So if they get 6, 7, 8 hours, maybe they're sleeping more and they're waking up and they're still feeling tired. Nightmares, bad dreams, even just disconcerting dreams. It doesn't even have to be about the war. It can be about loved ones or safety issues. Um, Changes in appetite. That's another very common physical reaction to a stress response. So eating more than you normally would, not having an appetite, the foods that you normally eat maybe not sitting well with you. Um, and as most of you can probably relate to, cravings. And during when we have cortisol and adrenaline running through our system, we actually crave carbohydrates and sugars. So when you're reaching for that chocolate chip cookie or the comforting mashed potatoes, there's actually a biological reason for that. And so remember that, back, if we think about the fight or flight, getting carbohydrates into your system quickly replenishes the body and the fuel, which is why we traditionally crave those things. Headaches are a really common physical reaction to a stress response. So if you're having a low-grade headache, if you're somebody that suffers from lots of headaches or migraines, you may be getting more of those. Body aches, you may feel tightness in your shoulders, your neck, your chest, even your hands, your legs often. People feel body aches. Feeling just tired or run down. Normally you may go about your day and it doesn't make you this tired, but you're feeling more tired. You can have certainly gastrointestinal issues as well. So these are some of the most common things, but certainly there are others. And think about, like, when you're under normal stress, what happens to your body? And we all have certain reactions. Some people may break out in a rash. For younger people, maybe they have more acne. So there are so many different reactions that our bodies can have. So that's just on the physical end. So let's talk about the emotional reactions. So our bodies are going through, it's got this cortisol running through your system. And now we're being barraged with these sounds, these images, 24/7. And it takes an emotional toll on us, right? So some of the emotional effects and reactions that people have, anger is a really common one. Irritability. Many people find that they're more irritable, more short. Maybe you're snapping at your kids a little bit more, or your partner, or your coworkers. Some people feel a lot of guilt, um, that here I am living my life, and nothing's being affected, and there's this whole population of people, millions and millions of people that are being uprooted, and tragedy all around them. And so there's some guilt in that we feel a connection with other human beings. Another common emotional effect is feeling scared, or anxious, or more vulnerable. Very, very common. A general sense of anxiety, so not just anxiety or being scared about the war, but you may sense that, why am I more worried about how my kids are doing in college, or what my spouse is doing at work, or did they make it home safely? So you may find that your worry meter, as some of us call it, is increasing. Distraction. Being distracted is another effect that can happen. Reacting to others. and reacting to situations that are a little bit out of character. Examples that I can give that most people can attest to or relate to are things like road rage. You may find that you become more irritable. Why is there so much traffic today? Why won't this person move faster in front of me? Oh, that green light turned green 5 seconds ago. Go, 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 right? Even stuff like that. Other types of being reactive. Maybe you're finding that you're crying at commercials or shows that you normally wouldn't, or books that you're reading or stories that you're reading. And then there's the sense of, which happens, very common, is a sense of hopelessness. What's this world coming to? How can this possibly be happening? And a sense of helplessness. So these are all very, very common emotional reactions. I think it's also important to talk about that there are also deeper, more spiritual reactions that people have when tragedies like this are occurring. So for many people, they begin to experience what we call spiritual distress. So that they begin to question their deeply held moral beliefs, and that they begin to have some negative feelings towards a higher power. So I think that that's also something to pay attention to. We begin to question our own moral beliefs and who we are as human beings. I also want to take a second and talk a little bit about children and their reactions. So all of the things that I just talked about, all of those physical reactions and all those emotional reactions, children will experience as well. And in addition to that, what you will very commonly see with children is that they will react by regressing to what we would call like an earlier stage of development. So if you have maybe like a 5, 6, 7-year-old who quit sucking their thumb when they were 3 or 4, you may find that they have gone back to sucking their thumb. Or wanting more cuddle time. You may see more acting out behaviors, the temper tantrums that you haven't seen in a number of years. You may reappear, more whining, more clinginess. And so for older kids, more questioning. Why do I have to do that? More irritability. And even with older kids, they may have a higher need for more physical touch, hugs, snuggling, just attention and time. Remember that a lot of what this is about is vulnerability and a lack of safety. And children respond to how we're feeling as well. So those would be some very specific things that you might see out of kids. Even things like bedwetting. You may have had a child who hasn't wet the bed in a long time, and they may start wetting the bed again. Increased nightmares or bad dreams, as well as very, very common in young kids as well. Okay, so these are some of the reactions, the physical reactions that you might have, the emotional reactions and the spiritual reactions. So what do we do about that, right? I mean, this is really, this is hard stuff. And, you know, what I'm going to talk about, none of it is really rocket science. And it is, first and foremost, I think what you have to understand is, so I talked about the physical reactions. It's important to take care of our body so that we can begin to address the emotional reactions that we're having. When you don't feel well, when you're in pain, when you're sick, everything is harder. And so all of these stress reactions, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you've quit your exercise program, if you've got some body aches, your body's not at its best. And so most of what we talk about with self-care is going to be focused on taking care of the body so that you can actually begin to process and deal with the emotional the feelings that you have and the thoughts that you have, because there's nothing that I can say in this video that's going to make it all better for you. Right now, the world is not a great place, and there are really bad things happening. And so there's nothing that I can say that's going to make that all go away. So while I'm talking, I'm actually going to put up onto the screen some of the top things that we recommend that you should do in order to mitigate the results. So bear with me for a second while I pull this, while I share this. So for those of you that are visual like me, that I'm going to go through all of these, but you can also look at them as well. So I think first and foremost, one of the best things that you can do is talk about what's happening. Share your own feelings and thoughts with those that you care about and that will listen to you. And you can start the conversation with, I just want to blah this out. I just want to talk about this. And talk about how it's affecting you. I'm feeling hopeless. I'm feeling helpless. And talk about that with others, because we are human beings, we're social creatures. And what we do know that by coming together and actually talking with other people, it does actually help us. It's important to find balance. Being involved 24/7 or only focusing on all of these negative thoughts and feelings that you're having doesn't help. You've got to find balance in your life, right? And then the third one, which is probably one of the most important things, especially right now, and I know this is going to be really hard, is you've got to take a break from the 24/7 news cycle, the images, the sounds, all of it that's coming out of the Ukraine. The constant images, the constant chatter, the constant breaking news, the newest video, did you see? Please, please, please limit your exposure to this. Now remember, the exposure isn't just TV and radio anymore. You can get up, you can turn your TV off, you can turn the radio off, but social media, as soon as I pick up my phone, my Facebook feed, my Instagram feed, my Twitter feed, it all blows up and it's at me. I actually have to go in to avoid it. And I have to move it aside. Remember that it's okay to have downtime. Take a break from that. And for you parents out there, please help your kids do this as well, because they are being barraged with this as well. Know what your kids, which platforms they're on, what's coming at them, and limit that exposure. It's important not to honor your own feelings and validate your own feelings. I'm here to tell you, if you are feeling helpless about what's going on in Ukraine, I hear you. Yes, that is a legitimate feeling. Absolutely. And honor the feelings of those around you. They may not be the same. And so be a good listener as well as a good talker. All right. It's okay to have a range of emotions around that. So the next one, I think that you all know, you hear it every day when it comes to taking care of our body. You've got to take care of your body. And that means you have to eat healthy, get sleep, establish a healthy routine, and get some exercise, some physical activity. We know that that is good for your body, right? You want to lose weight, you want to stay healthy, you're recovering from an illness, an injury, anything like that. These are the top things. Please try to eat a balanced, healthy meal at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Start with that. Eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe that's your start. Make sure that you're getting sleep. I'd like to say that we all get 8 hours of sleep or 9 hours. I know we don't. I think the average now is 5 3/4 hours a night for the average US adult. For kids, it's a little more. But if you can up that, please do that. And please try to get some physical activity, movement in your day. Go for a walk, go work out, lift a couple of weights, run around the house with the kids, take your dog for a walk. Whatever it is, it will actually, what it does is it flushes some of those chemicals, the adrenaline, out of your system, and helps you move back towards that balance, that homeostasis. This is really, I think it makes sense in terms of this next one around helping others. So for many of us, one way to deal with such tragedies and such horror that's going on is to be helpful. And that may be in the form of helping directly the people of Ukraine, whether that's you're donating your money, you're donating your time, you're donating a service, but it could also be, it could be something else that's completely unrelated, but that is a feel-good activity for you. So if you volunteer somewhere, let's say you volunteer at a soup kitchen or for an organization, keep doing that, because that makes a difference. Helping others, whether it's the people of Ukraine or whether it's your fellow people in New Hampshire, that's great. It is a healing thing to be helping others and doing something productive. So remember that this is also ongoing. And so this isn't a one-time event. This is chronic, and these are things that you should be trying to do every day throughout the cycle. And it's going to go up and down for you. You're going to feel some days you're like, oh, I'm okay. And then the next day you're not, or from hour to hour, your thoughts and feelings are going to wax and wane. And remember, survivor's guilt is real. That's an interesting thing. I talked a little bit about that in the effects, and that many of us feel guilt. We feel guilt about, gee, I'm so lucky that I live in the United States and I don't have to deal with this. I was able to wake up this morning in my own bed. I was able to get into my car today and go to work and be productive, and then go home and have dinner and have my family around me. Why me? Why am I so lucky? And I think many of us feel guilt around that. And that's a really normal reaction as well. And just own that and honor that. So those are the big ones. Some other things, what do you do to take care of yourself? What's unique to you? What works for you? And I have this cute little, sort of depiction of some of the things that people have come up with that are great self-care ideas. Music is a great one, and we all know that. For many people, diving into some art, whether it's writing or drawing or painting or sculpting. Remember laughter, use humor. I think that's really important. Things like complimenting each other can be really helpful as well. So what are those things that you do to take care of yourself? Keep doing that, because those are really important. So in conclusion, really, what's going on right now in Ukraine, limit your exposure. That will be helpful. And I know that that's a balance, because you want to be updated as to what might be going on in any given day or hour, but you have to balance that with your own self-care. And so that would be one of my biggest messages: limit your exposure, limit your children's exposure, limit your family's exposure. Talk about it. Talk about what's going on. If you need some assistance in, how do I talk to my kids about war? We actually have a number of articles that are posted on our Facebook page. So if you go to Community Partners, nh.org on our website, you can click on the link there to our Facebook page. And on there, there's an article on how to talk to your kids about war. I would please go to that, reference that. I think it can be really helpful. I think it is important to talk to your kids about what is going on. You don't have to tell them everything, but I think it is important. And understand that for a lot of kids, they are concerned about their own safety and security. And so addressing that will be very, very important as well. And if you have any other questions or feel like you need further clarification on anything, please feel free to outreach me. I will stop sharing now. And what I will do is in the chat, I will put my email address. Of course, I can't talk and type at the same time. Hopefully I typed that correctly. It is jsalisbury@communitypartnersnh.org. I will put that in the chat and leave that up. If you have any further questions, you are more than welcome to outreach me at any point in time by email, and I'd be happy to have a further conversation with you. I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to watch this video and listen to me. And I wish you well and take care of yourself. Thank you.